All right, welcome and thank you everyone for joining us for another Twitter Space. Today is July 21st, 2022, and this is episode 14 of the ledgerscale Internet of Value Open Forum. Now, ledgerscale was founded with two goals in mind. One, we want to provide educational services to not only our community, but to the entire digital asset community, and to scale up the number of brains that understand how distributed ledger technology works. And two, we intend to one day run hardware to provide infrastructural support to the distributed ledger technology networks that we believe are ESG friendly and running a form of decentralized consensus. We host these spaces Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, starting at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And on Wednesday, we host a focus topic space from 5 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. If I could ask if everybody could follow ledgerscale on Twitter and turn notifications on so you know when we're going live, and retweet the space so you not only you but maybe other people can find the information we provide valuable in the future.
Yeah, and like basically the whole purpose here is just to engage the community. So please, everybody, anybody, speak up. If you have a question, I guarantee you somebody else has the same question. It doesn't matter how simple or whatever you think the question is, just ask away. And yeah, just if you do speak up, it's an open forum, but just at least please be cordial and respectful of others. And you know, we've gotten some feedback that folks are maybe intimidated about speaking up. I want to discourage that feeling. So if anybody does feel intimidated to speak up, I just go ahead and speak up, and then that's good. Nobody's gonna ridicule you or anything like that, and if they do, then we'll boot them. Right? Like that's not appropriate.
Instant boot.
Yeah, and then yeah, welcome to the space, and there's a bunch going on.
Although I'm really today, it's very hot.
Yeah, I don't know what topic we want to get started with, but yeah, there's a lot going on.
You guys hear about well, first thing first, how you guys doing?
Very tired. Long day. Extremely hot.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to later, dude.
Yeah.
102 expected.
So I've missed everything that's probably happened today because I was upstate in the middle of no man's land. There was no service. What's happened?
Okay, so for there's something that I was reading earlier. They were talking about it on TV as well. Former Coinbase manager and two others charged in crypto insider trading. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
Yep, and they mentioned if crypto are considered security. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
They attempted to flee to India ahead of a scheduled interview by Coinbase security department. But yeah, law enforcement were able to catch them.
What? What did you say? Law enforcement? What?
Law enforcement were able to catch them at the airport.
So they were trying to run away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
They were attempting to flee to India.
So the question is, how did the information get leaked to them that they were after them for knowing that there was insider trading going on? Because some sort of investigation had to be occurring.
So yeah, that's a good question. I don't know how they would know ahead of time. So they were they're being charged with a fraud conspiracy, wire fraud in connection with a scheme to commit insider trading in cryptocurrency assets. The charges allege the individuals plan to use confidential Coinbase information about which crypto assets were scheduled to be listed on Coinbase exchanges. But isn't that, I'm not going to accuse anybody of, or any of these exchanges of doing that. Isn't that like common practice for these people?
Yeah, that's
even
all.
though it's wrong.
Yeah,
Well, there's
no, it's not a
specific
no.
there's specific regulations against insider trading and trading on non-public information, or I don't know how they phrase it. But I do think it's pretty ironic. Here you got some people actually kind of, doing fraud, and then Ripple has spent $100 million defending themselves, and there's not even a fraud allegation. And I don't know how many billion have been taken out of the market value. Wait, what?
So the question is, it's like, did they investigate these people before they arrest them, or that's the first time like they arresting them and they're gonna questioning them?
No, they
Yeah,
didn't at the airport for nothing.
yeah, they're in custody right now, I believe.
Mean is that this people can snitch. Is that correct? If there is more to
Oh
it.
yeah, they'll probably cut a deal with the feds, right? For sure. Like 98% of those defendants cop pleas and cut deals, right? But I think it just goes to a bigger issue, right? At the end of the day, like whenever you create these large, institutions like a Coinbase is, right? You kind of create this gatekeeper mentality. And so that gatekeeper then has that information, right? For that they know is going to be advantageous to the people who don't have that information, right? And it's just a friction point, man, for people who engage in this model that we all know that they don't have to be engaged in, right? But yet, for whatever reason, right, they're turning to these centralized custody solutions, right, and putting themselves in these situations they don't really have to be in, right? And
So,
so, yeah.
Kashta or somebody else, I wonder which agency will be investigating them. Like, is that like FBI? Is that like SEC? Is like I don't know the like who would
Well,
be
they're being charged with insider trading, right? So wouldn't that be,
SEC?
maybe I'm wrong, SEC? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're like I mean, like, do they have their own enforcement arm? It's probably the feds that are actually like doing the actual like chasing them down part of the marshals or something like that, right?
Well, then you also have the wire fraud. So the wire fraud, I think, would be
It could be
FBI.
federal. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Actually, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they are gonna cut deals with these people to let them know what else happened. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, that's why I think we just have to keep reinforcing, like, as much as possible, if you're encouraging people to come into this space and talking to people about this space, right, we have to keep, at least from my perspective, right, I can't speak for everybody, but keep reinforcing the importance of, not having to interact with these centralized exchanges, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until you absolutely have to, right? So if you're having to cash out into fiat because you're trying to spend some, then that time going in and out, is your exposure to it, right? But I think we need to reinforce the message to minimize the exposure that a lot of people seem to be still taking unnecessarily by engaging with centralizing aspects of this market, period. Like over and over again.
And
Well, this is one of the. Sorry.
no, it's funny that Coinbase stock is only down 3% in this news, because for me, I think that's a kind of a big deal because you never know who else is going to be involved,
But
So the SEC is involved in this. I just read something right now
yeah,
that says the
but how is
SEC
it
is involved.
possible? Like
I
for the SEC, because
like who they're going to bring down with them,
Well,
because
because it would vet, it's because it's insider trading. But the question was also, well, what happens with the wire fraud? Wire fraud will be something of the FBI, I believe.
yeah, but insider trading, but this isn't. I mean, there are not securities, right? I mean, because they are like in this, gray zone. insider trading, yes, but of what, basically? Because I know if
I'm pretty
example-
sure insider trading involves
Department of Justice.
well, no, it's the non-public information.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no.
Wire fraud. So it says right here,
Yeah.
the Department of Justice charged them with wire fraud and wire fraud conspiracy, wire fraud, saying in a statement that they retrieved confidential information from a private Coinbase messaging channel reserved for a small number of employees with direct involvement in the listing process.
Yeah, that seems to be more.
Yeah, the SEC take care of the insider trading, basically.
So just to speak,
Well, that's reasonable, though. I mean, I think that's desirable.
just to speak on that as well, it's secure from my experience in the financial sector. That security operations who reaches out to those officials, so they could either reach out to the SEC or the FBI, DOJ, and then go from there. That's all I wanted to mention.
They have proof as well of the purchases. So they say here, in one instance, Ishan allegedly called Nick Hill just minutes after receiving confirmation that the Ethereum-based POWR token would be listed on Coinbase, allowing Nick Hill to buy about $7,000 of the crypto assets just 2 minutes before the announcement, and then almost immediately realizing a profit of $3,000 upon selling the tokens once the announcement went live.
That's it.
How much?
That's what I was.
How much?
Yeah, dude,
Three-
This is not that much, I would say.
How much?
If you're gonna, I mean, I'm not encouraging it, obviously, but if you're gonna do that, why only 7,000?
I thought it's gonna be millions of dollars. You know?
This guy just ruined his whole life over $7,000.
I mean, the flight ticket to India is probably more. I don't know.
Well, you also got to think about how many times they've done this. So that's one instance. But how many tokens did they do this, and for how long?
Yeah. All right. Good. Hopefully.
I mean, it's interesting that 2 minutes before announcement, couldn't they get it a bit earlier?
It's
Like
kind
he
of
really tried to sell the top.
yeah, they should make a move about it where they go arrest them at the last second, That would be the end of the movie.
But this is extremely stressful. If I have to buy now in a rush, in 2 minutes,
But $7,000, it's basically it's gonna ruin their career. It's gonna get they are in trouble. God knows if they can get jail time or something. But even if they didn't, it's gonna ruin their career, basically.
Well, this is an interesting statement. So this is from a SEC official, Gruber Gruel, said in a statement, the economic realities affirm that a number of the crypto assets involved are securities, giving the agency jurisdiction and pledged to double down on enforcement actions involving crypto crimes regardless of the label placed on the securities involved. So if these guys bought quote unquote securities, and they're in bigger trouble.
The interesting is, so here's the list: AMP, RLY, DDX, XOY, RGT, LTX, POWR, DFX, and KROM, and that's thanks to Shellfish. But so I only know AMP, right? And AMP is a one of these elastic band stable coins. Out of that entire bunch, I'm so confused how they picked those out of the.
I didn't even know AMP. I didn't know any one of them. I didn't even. This coin was.
But that's the whole. But that's the whole thing. If you think about it, it's just a chess move, right? They make the accusation that those are securities, right? Giving them the authorization, number one, into the crypto space. But on top of that, to turn around and make a move, as Sherman indicated, to say, well, let's go after the exchange, right? Because now we got proof that you're carrying all of these securities on your exchange. It's a whole chess move, man, that they're really playing around with.
That's what Brian Armstrong said today, also earlier. So he said he hit back at the SEC assertion that some of the crypto assets are securities, noting the Department of Justice did not bring security fraud charges and saying no assets listed on our platform are securities, and the SEC charges an unfortunate distraction from today's appropriate law enforcement action. He also noted the company conducted a rapid investigation of the matter after receiving allegations of front running.
Yeah, I think what was probably really important about the part that I actually read was, and Coinbase makes a very good point in what they wrote, at least what I saw published, right? In that if they're going to go ahead and say that some of these assets are securities, right? And I think we can agree some of them probably are, right? Being a security or not is really not the important point. The important point is that the securities laws as they exist now were written because the infrastructure didn't allow for instant settlement and a lot of things that the security laws were written for. So why not just update the security laws, right? Make this a lot easier, quicker, more efficient for everybody on every side of this, and we don't even have to play these games. Like it just reinforces the whole, thought process that these people really just want power and control. Because if they wanted to fix it, it would really be an easy fix.
Right, and it goes on here what the SEC has on them. They have including screenshots of the conversations that he had, Ishan, with the other co-conspirators. So they were trying to escape to India.
Because I don't know if y'all was keeping up with the library case that, that summary judgment closed yesterday, and there was some very big news coming out of that whole thing, man. And like at the end of the day, the SEC went completely on record and said utility doesn't matter. They don't care if some people bought it without any expectations of profit. Like if anybody did, that's their basic argument that it's a security hands down, and like they sticking to it, man. So it's like this whole thing is going to be very, very interesting. The judge asked a lot of inquisitive questions, and of course, John opinionated that there's some things that could be discerned from the questions that he asked. As far as is he, really considering the, the factual basis, or is there, he leaning one way or another already? But at the end of the day, the SEC completely went on record that none of the stuff that a lot of people kind of really talk about at the end of the day matters to them. It's that if anybody bought the asset with any expectation of profit at any future time, then they're holding their hat that it's security. So it's going to be interesting to see how that case actually plays out.
Well, I think I think that's a pretty weak argument. How long? I'll explain why in a second. How long does the judge have to respond?
They said they were expecting it like 30 to 60 days is what a lot of the estimates are, but I don't know the factual deadline myself.
Okay.
But wasn't
And
the judge
the
supposed to
reason,
make a decision yesterday?
Say again, Tony.
Wasn't the judge supposed to make a decision yesterday?
Not that I know of. Like when the guy was talking to John, they were all under the impression it would be about another 30, 60 days before they got anything. So he's just waiting for the guy who's the library CEO. I forgot his name or whatever, but he's just waiting on the transcripts. He said he'll post them, so we'll be able to see the whole case transcript. As soon as he gets them, he'll publish them, and so we'll get to see more. But meantime, we wait.
well, okay, let me just from an economic basis, like point out that that's a super duper. I mean, I can see a lawyer trying to spin things, which obviously they're trying to spin something that doesn't spin, but or it's like they're trying to like spin like a lopsided thing. But like, dude, anything could, what if I bought a car before COVID, a used car, right? And then COVID happened, and then used cars went up in value, and was like, well, all right, I'll sell the car and make a profit. Like, is that car
Yeah,
now a security? What?
I 100% agree with you, Carmen, which makes this whole thing that more interesting, right? Because some of the direct questions that were asked, right, by the judge is directly related to utility. So the library people basically said, okay, then, if we could prove utility, and they were talking about stuff like it was only 5 videos at one time, and now there's over 50 million videos in regards to the aspect of utility, and they absolutely went on record and said they didn't matter, like point blank didn't matter. So then they were asked, okay, well, if Libra just completely dissolved as a company, made no promotional statements, made no develop, like if affirmative to those type of questions, then what would, and they went on record and said even that wouldn't matter. So like again, their argument is very weak, but they have went directly on record to say that to them those things do not matter, which makes it even more interesting. Like, why would you go on record and say that? And you know it's a weak argument. I know it's a weak argument. Why would you go on record saying that it's almost as if you kind of know the outcome already, is what I'm alluding to, right? Or it's just very strange.
Oh man, I'm kind of gonna change this. Well, I'm not trying to change the subject, but I just got a message from, I don't know if anybody remembers the guy that came on that was talking about the interledger protocol stuff. I'm gonna help him do some testing, and he says he's ready to do some live. Anyway, some live testing with real transactions and real money. I'm telling you, dude, this stuff's coming quicker than folks realize.
You want to tell me that the Coinbase CEO has nothing to do with that? Like he doesn't know, he doesn't have any idea. Yeah.
But the
Well,
allegations
there's
are against, the allegations are against the individuals, because hold on, I got a message from someone explaining it. So they have, Coinbase has a security license. So the goal is not Coinbase or the person itself. It's the individuals that are being charged. So it's, I mean, Coinbase is not really implicated, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but like I have feeling, okay, when they investigate these people or these guys, okay, they will ask them for more information. Who does what?
Oh yeah, they're gonna rat each other out for lesser prison sentences, of course.
Yeah, it's not done yet. That's the beginning of the story.
It could be a snitch fest.
Yeah, but,
It will.
yeah, but if you look at the details of the story, Egyptian, it just looks like they have security failures, right? Like at some point, there's information that you try to corral in certain places so that it doesn't happen. And if you're a CEO, you're definitely not micromanaging all those aspects of it, right? So at some point in time, that video information or video call or whatever it was got exposed to somebody who took a brief moment that took 2 minutes to execute a small $7,000 trade, right? So it just seems like an opportunist took an opportunity on a security failure. Is really what it looks like. Like Coinbase has been known to be kind of involved in this, concept of insider trading, particularly on new listings, for a very long time. So it's certainly not new. And if the CEO is not making the appropriate, security measures to prevent that from happening, then he's certainly implicated, right? Because it's been a very long time. But yeah, I think we just have to be kind of looking at the details. It looks like just an opportunist attacking a security failure.
Like if there is one thing that he should have micromanaged, it's this crap, because it was always known. Everybody would say, okay, everybody would accuse Coinbase of insider trading. It's so famous. It's not like it's the first time. Everybody was wondering. So I'm pretty sure he knows. Like he knows people concerned that, okay, there is, like, if you remember Bitcoin Cash. You remember Bitcoin Cash when it got listed on Coinbase in 2017? Go look at the price chart of Bitcoin Cash, okay, in 2017, and see how much it went up to $4,000 when it got listed, and it just in 2 days it just dropped like a rock. And people at the time was like, oh, there is insider trading. How did it
Egyptian.
go? Yeah.
How many times have I said this market behaves weird?
Yeah.
Okay. I understand value creation, and I understand that markets generally long term, I think Warren Buffett has a saying about this. I don't remember what it is at the moment, but long term markets will reflect the success of the value creation. Okay, but there's been a lot of things that where the prices have gone, super duper, and I fail I mean, maybe I'm just stupid, but I fail to see the value creation. It's and then the on the opposite side of the spectrum, you see things that are actually creating value, and the price goes nowhere, and it's like, wait what? Like what? I mean, it's but this is a new industry, so there's a lot still to be worked out. I mean, that's just the nature of the where we are in the time frame of this industry growing. I wasn't trying to kill the conversation. I'm just like, it's
No, you
weird.
made a great point. No, you made a great point. I mean, at this point, the whole, at least the mass majority of the market is separated utility from price discovery at this point because there's just not enough utility taking place for, that part of the, aspect of it to be
Well,
participating in price discovery. So,
and the idea, oh my goodness. Oh, geez, Louise. How could you imagine the SEC comes to you and you're like an economist or something, and they say, hey, Mr. Economist, we need you to make an argument that utility is not valuable in its own right. I mean, and we're going to use you as like an expert witness or something. Like what? How can you? What do you like? I mean, a 2x4 is valuable, right? Because I can use it to help stand up a wall. And like I want a wall. Like a wall is a good thing to have. So I just it's an impossible task. I can't imagine. I mean, I guess according to what you were reading a second ago, that they're actually arguing that utility doesn't matter. But I mean, where do you think value comes from? It's a geez, I wouldn't want to be on the opposite side trying to argue that.
Hey, can I ask you? Now, we talked about this before. When we say creating value, okay, like let's look at something like DeFi. Okay, where's the value created in DeFi? Can anybody explain?
Well, yeah, there's liquidity, there's hedging, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, okay, based on the value that you think it creates, like let's say if you use DeFi and you want to get like a yield or something,
Right.
Based on what you said, what do you expect as a yield from these services? Yeah, a fair yield.
Well, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead, Carmen. I was just going to say, I was going to let Tony get his in, and then I was going to answer your question, Egyptian, because I'm going to come from a very different angle, but I'm going to directly try to answer your question.
Yeah, like anybody can answer the question. That's fine.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, just look at the spreads. Look at how the market's set up. Whoever's paying for whatever risk mitigation or risk management tools, or liquidity tools, or whatever the actual core service is.
But do you think it could reach 5% or 8%?
Well, the percent is relative to the how much the customer pays, and then the platform should get a cut, right? Because they're facilitating everything. It's reasonable to get paid for your job. You gotta, and then like a little bit left over. I mean, it's really not that much different than like the fractional reserve banking model. I mean, you could take that business model and apply it and call it DeFi, and now it's fancy and cool. It's the same thing.
I think it is worth. Let's say it depends on the risk, right? You have the risk premium, and for example, in DeFi, you have like, let's say, the lender and the borrower, and on DeFi or between in crypto, it's just everything is anonymous, so you don't have a credit record of anyone, right? So you have to assume like they are very, very terrible, right? Worst case. And charging them, if I borrow, okay, let's say I don't know, XRP or something, you know, I borrow XRP and I get interest like, let's say 15 or 20%, I have to pay interest on that loan. That's fair, I would say, because it's like, you know, it's, I mean, it's basically Wild West loan, you know. They have no record, there's no backing, there's no security for the lender, whatever. I can go bankrupt and not pay back anytime. And he gets the 20% or 15% in, you know, in the interest that I pay, because he's risking that I can default anytime. So in that sense, this is okay. And you have also the other part, which is the AMM stuff a lot, where if you use the DEX and you pay like basically the spread or the fees you pay for using an exchange, in that sense, goes to the people who provide liquidity. So this is the value creation. People who use the DEX, or on the other side, the borrower and lender thing, you know.
Let me
That hang on one second, Egyptian. Think about it this way. Okay, so one of the big problems when I was thinking through like how to do loans is, how do you enable enforcement from the lender, right? Like if I borrow, you know, 100 XRP from you, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, buy, right? What are you going to do? Like, you have no way to force me to make a transaction or sign a transaction on my wallet to pay you back the 100 XRP. So you have to resort to legal methods. But the really cool thing about this AMM is that it enables, so me providing you a loan is me giving you liquidity, right? There's not credit creation, because I didn't like make the XRP up out of nowhere. You know, I mean, it was existing. That's it. Like, I just moved from my wallet to your wallet. But so there's no credit creation, but there is liquidity, right? Like, so now you have this 100 XRP and you can go do whatever it is you need to do for whatever reason. And but these AMMs allow people to provide liquidity, get compensated for it, as they should. I mean, yeah. And you sort of, I mean, I just kind of thought of this as you were talking a second ago, and that sort of solves the problem of I'm concerned as the person who's going to loan you the 100 XRP, then I'm going to get paid back. Well, through the AMM methods, I'm going to get paid back, and I know I'm going to get my return. And I think it's I'm still
Does he sound
this, but
does he sound like about to you guys?
Yeah, for me as well. He's cutting off like a bit.
Oh man, I thought that my phone was breaking.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody-
What I want to say is, or Egyptian, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I have a question for you. So let's
Yeah.
say
Go ahead.
you do I borrow money, or somebody borrow money, and you pay 15%. So the borrower, what he's gonna do with this money, you know, to pay 15%?
Yeah, I pay. Okay, if I pay 50, I mean, it's very obvious. You know, if I go and buy XRP, you know, and I you know, with a loan basically that costs me like 15%, right? Then I'm a trader, I would assume, you know, because I need my XRP to go up ASAP, because else I'm underwater. Or in other words, I have to make money somewhere, you know. The asset that I buy, or the opportunities that I have to exceed obviously the 15%, right? If I am convinced, hey, I can make 30% this year, then I can pay this 15 APY, whatever, you know, to the lender or whatever. The issue is you have a market risk, right? The market risk is the risk of the whole crypto economy that you cannot diversify or anything, and you can. There's no risk premium for this because this is basically the systemic risk. It's like COVID hit, right? If COVID hit, you cannot hedge against this beforehand, and there's no risk premium to pay for something like this. But an unsystemic risk in that sense for, let's say, XRP or that's or like the 15% in that sense for XRP is high because we don't know, maybe they could get called to security, maybe not, maybe they are there tomorrow, no, I don't know, right? This is why it's people rather borrow stable coins or something, because like they have a less risk to them in that sense, and influence. But you're totally right. Like if I borrow for that high amount, it's usually shady stuff. Like I gamble or something, but it's not something for constructive thing. Like I don't borrow money there to buy a house,
Yeah, because it used to be that you take this loan, like you borrow this money, okay, for 15%, and you go actually, like lend it to somebody that, like lend it again and make more yield, and that's what caused the whole collapse.
Yeah, and this works well until everyone is making real money. But in a market downturn,
Yeah,
where I cannot make money, basically, I'm instantly underwater. It's then it's obviously it's
like
shitty.
I see there could be a like yeah, DeFi is good and everything, but with the current status that we have it, like it's not sustainable at all. Like
Right.
yeah,
Right. And so now you've spoken to what I was going to say initially. And Tony, I'm definitely going to let you in, man. But now you spoke exactly to what I was going to say from the beginning, right? When you say it's DeFi, like provide value in those things, absolutely, right? Because at the end of the day, right, what they're trying to get is financial inclusion, right? So a lot of times in the legacy market, right, when it comes to certain people trying to get access to liquidity to build up their business or whatever they need the liquidity for, even if it's high risk, right? They're simply denied, right? Because whatever it be, the zip code they live in, the hue that they are, the nation they may have came from, like all of those things play a part, right? And so doing it in a DeFi way is absolutely of value to humankind as what this technology is bringing us. But you said at this time, right? And that's the problem. Everything that we're kind of almost basing a judgment on at this time has to be in consideration that all of this money is just moving around within the crypto ecosphere, right? It's not even participating 99% into the actual real world. So you're just moving one shell game to the other shell game to the other shell game of crypto participants moving money from one pocket or one account from one platform to another account. But it's not really interacting in the real world. So to make a judgment with DeFi as we see it today is really not a fair assessment of it, right? Until it matures and starts to be a product that is, available for the people that it really should be available to, right? The people who need the financial inclusion and the people who need those type of investments, right? But are willing to play fairly in getting them, right? And so that's what I would say about it.
like I think it's a good product if the interest rate, or you know it's not far off for, like where you get from a bank or from any financial institution. Then I see there is, like, I think DeFi will be good because, as you say, it's financial. It will include a lot of people. Uh, but if the interest rate is way off, then it's kind of like, I don't see it. But I
Right.
agree.
But
Yeah.
think of it this way though, Egyptian, right? In a mature version of it, right? What if that pool of liquidity that we're calling DeFi, right, is being managed by people who are unicorn hunters and they hit on some new company that actually does a 15x over 5 years, right? Because it was just a good company and it was a good idea. Then they might be able to redistribute, right, all of that growth that company is actually producing in a real world fashion, right? Because it was a good business and they were the investors who invested in it and distributed that to those investors in a DeFi manner, right? And so I think that's what I mean by the space is yet to mature to a connection to the real world, because there could be high payouts if it was, but it's also high risk, right? And so all of that will be correlated to each individual case. But You know,
Yeah.
I think on the yeah.
That basically what Arrington Capital is doing. I mean, you kind of just described an investment fund, right?
Absolutely.
Except
Absolutely.
the fund is denominated in XRP instead of dollars.
Right.
And they're
My only thing about Arrington Capital, though, is that to me, and I have to look more into their investments, right? It seems like that arm of what he's doing is still very attached to the crypto space in general, right? So they're making other investments in other crypto companies, and it has yet to kind of still go outside of the crypto ecosphere. And that's what I'm, again, kind of waiting for. And I'm sure a lot has to do with regulations is holding it out. But once this money can be, like I said, if you have a group of people who are unicorn hunters, right, they may find the next big thing, right, and that could produce real returns that could be, redistributed in a way that we envision it, right? It's just that right now it's all high risk because it's still all crypto, and I think that's what part of the problem is.
Okay,
like look at the Arrington Capital, like they have investments that they've done that are in projects that are based on the Ethereum, or built on the Ethereum network. They're not, because their balance sheet is denominated or based in XRP, they're not running these companies to get more Ethereum, right? They're running these companies to get more XRP, which would be the same as like if you or I were to do an investment. I'm sure everybody in here, unless you're international, then you're wherever you are, but like my balance sheet's based in dollars, right? Like it's just the way it is. And so, when I do an investment, I do it to get more dollars. So the fact that I might engage with, say, an Ethereum or a gold or a lumber or a stock or a bond or a what have you, the point is for me to get more dollars, because that's like the basis of my balance sheet. Yeah, they're trying to get more XRP.
To add on this for Egyptian, like there's not always you can choose, like in America you have like great access to loans and banks and you have like a great variety of this, but go to South America or Africa, right? You don't always have a choice there, and maybe you don't even get a loan, like even if you would want. So in that sense, for these unbanked, people call them unbanked, that's a good opportunity, maybe, obviously if it works out for them with the interest rate, but yeah.
Okay, let me tell you something interesting. It's just happened right now. Okay, so I got a notification from Robinhood.
I saw the same thing.
Oh yeah, I can enroll to lend my shares, which is kind of funny. Yeah, it's funny. We're talking about this. So now they are doing DeFi in Robinhood on the stocks. Basically, that's what it is. Okay.
Melt up.
Yes, that's funny. Because I just got it right now. They say hypothetical annualized lending interest rate is 1.5%. Yeah.
It's at least more in line with like reality. I mean, let's just be honest. Interest rates are not that high. When I saw some of these projects, and they're like, "Oh, we're paying up into the teens interest rate returns and stuff." I'm just looking at it and going like, I don't even need to waste my time analyzing this. Like there's BS. Like,
yeah, Vet had hit it on the head, right? Like we all know, whether we can look at the documents and the data on chain. I mean, that was just a big amount of traders who were borrowing assets, trading off of those assets. And of course, we could see by performance and looking back in hindsight, right, that if you're doing that in a bull market when prices are only going up, it's like, hey, we can do this forever, right? There's really no risk. We borrow some assets, right? We make a whole bunch of money. We pay back some of the money, right? We keep some of the spread. And this is the gravy train, right? It's when it goes down, right? And when all that shit falls apart, right? And I think they had some hedge about, okay, we got a limit of how far it can go down. And all of that just far exceeded all their expectations. And booyah, we seen the results, right? So it was trading, no doubt. and it was betting on the come, right? That it was just going to keep going up and to the right. And we see what happens when it doesn't, right? A lot of people get wrecked.
No, I mean what happens is everything always goes up and to the right forever. That's how life yeah, that's how it goes.
Only if you're Nancy Pelosi.
This time is different.
Right, and I think they're aware that it doesn't go up and to the right. And always, if I were to break it down, I just think that they delude themselves in where the potential bottom always is. Right, so they're thinking, because you can listen to some of the narratives at that time where they're thinking high side 100,000 Bitcoin, right? Maybe low side it would have been, 40s or 50s or whatever the thing. They didn't anticipate that it was going to go 20s, 17s, right? And that miscalculations, man, is a motherfucking boy.
So this is kind of slightly off topic, but I think it's interesting. There was a lady that did a study with many cultures around the world, and she would give them a pictorial set of like tiles, right? And ask them to put the tiles in order. And there was clearly like a order that made sense. Um, and so some cultures put them in order from left to right. Like obviously the English culture would do that. Some cultures put them in order from right to left. Some cultures put them in vertical order. And then she ran into the Australian Aboriginals. And they put them in diagonal order, vertical order, left to right to left, all sorts of freaking orders, right? And so she was like, basically, however the language is structured is how the order people put things in. But these Aboriginals were like, we're all over the place. And she couldn't figure it out. But the thing is, in their culture, in that culture, they were putting the directionality like north, south, east, west. It like you conjugate your verbs, and the directionality is inferred or included in the way that you conjugate the verbs, right? So from their point of view, what they were doing is to put it in order. They were doing it, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. So it depended on how they were sitting, right? If you spun them around, they'd instead of go from left to right, they'd go right to left. Like they put it from east to west, basically. Just a tidbit of interesting, hopefully.
Yeah, I want to say something specifically about the XRP ledger right quick, if I can change the subject a little bit. Um, and that I don't know if y'all have noticed, but a lot of times, of course, we're hearing this conversation about basically how consensus should be arrived at, cost, the energy used, right? Proof of work, proof of stake. Do y'all find it a little bit odd that they don't even mention, right, the consensus federated Byzantine agreement as a potential consensus model when they're having these discussions and don't even bring it up? Because I think as a means of distributing trust, right, it's one of the things that I stick to most about the XRP ledger, right? It doesn't force me to have to trust anybody, right? I can move in and out of trust based on rapport that I have, performance that I see among others. Like it's a real big thing with me, right? And I just find it odd that they don't ever mention it when having these consensus model discussions, right?
Yeah, you're on point. It's the weirdest thing in the world. It's another one of these weird things with this market. It's like as if this third method doesn't exist. Like what? It's existed. It's the second, like I guess you could kind of say Litecoin, but Litecoin's a copy paste of Bitcoin. So it's the second real technology in this industry. And it's like everybody just kind of puts their hand over their eyes and, pretends it doesn't exist. It's the goofiest thing. And it's actually a pretty decent tool. Like, whatever. I mean, it does what it does, and it doesn't do what it doesn't do, and what have you. But that's weird, man.
I definitely thought so myself because it's just what you said. It's like they speak of it as if it doesn't even exist, right? And it's existed for so long, right? It is just no explanation of why it gets omitted in these discussions and the validity of the perform. Like, think about it, right? I have these discussions with people in my circle sometimes, but like at the end of the day, with as much vitriol that we have seen directed at XRP and Ripple, right? To say that they have not had any loss of funds, right? Or any breach of trust, right? For as long as they have been using that consensus model. And you compare that to any other consensus models, we know that there are proof of work chains that have been hacked, right? We know that there have been proof of stake mechanisms that have failed, right? So I think from a performance perspective, it has proven itself, you know, beyond what would be expected.
Well, I mean, okay, yeah, I couldn't, yeah, but I mean, it's just, this is why I say it's weird. Everybody just likes to ridicule, which, criticism is actually valuable. Otherwise, you don't know what to fix. But the thing works. It's been working for a long time. In terms of blockchain technologies, it's been working longer than most. I just the whole, it just I mean, it's weird. Like, I look at the market and the listen to the sort of broader crypto community, and I see all the, yeah, we hate Ripple, cool. Like, I see all the stuff, and I'm just like, but are you, I guess the thing is, I don't think a lot of these people are actually interested in sort of actualizing Satoshi's original vision, which was peer-to-peer payments, right? Because if you were actually interested in enabling and creating and facilitating peer-to-peer payments, then the work with the XRP ledger, interledger protocol, like, why I
But Karma, try this one for a second, right? At higher prices, the XRP ledger has essentially had, $100 billion bounty on its head. Even today, if we use market cap as an indicator, 15, whatever, $18 billion bounty on its head, right? So that is a lot of motivation that if you felt like funds on the XRP ledger were not secure for any reason, right? Then help yourself, right? The bar is open, right? But it's just proof that again, those funds are so secure that even with the consensus mechanism that we use, even though it doesn't have miners, even though it's low cost, right? It's secure and it's just proven time and time again. But then there's
well,
also the aspect of criticism. Hold on, just one last thing, right? There's also the criticism of the UNL structure, right? When we know that exists, right? But at the end of the day, again, if we apply the real world aspect of it, right? The model has proven that those 35 people are not in a position to collude at any given time, because if they were, they had every opportunity then and now to make themselves wealthy, rich, right? But the consensus, again, even in that aspect, has proven itself secure. So I just think that, you know, they don't take the real world into consideration that this thing is doing exactly what it was designed to do.
well, and then you add in, and I'm telling you, this AMM thing, the longer I sort of marinate on some of these ideas, the more I realize how significant they are. Um, Plus the NFTs, I think I kind of don't care, but I see, I mean, I do care, but uh, I don't like the current embodiments, but there's a ton of potential there. plus the hooks. And like all this functionality is going to come. I mean, the XRP ledger already has a tremendous amount of functionality. Like I've said this before. Like when I first stumbled onto it, I didn't think I thought they had to be full of BS, and there's no way they were giving away this amount of functionality for free in an open source software. I really truly I was like, what these something's wrong here. Like that's what I thought. That's why I tested it out, and then it friggin' worked. And I was like, wait a second, what? Like, so that's when I started to learn about like decentralization and some of this stuff. And then the fact that it was open source made more sense because I understood why decentralization is desirable. But at first, I was like, you guys, this isn't. Yeah, I'll throw $100 in and let's see what happens, like that kind of thing. All this extra anyway. Those 3 amendments are gonna be big. Each one of those is individually big. The confluence of the 3 is even bigger.
If they got voted, is that correct?
Well, it's going to take a while, probably a year or plus. But yeah, they got to all be voted in, yada, yada. And to your point on the UNL, Kashta, I think the structure of the UNL is actually a strength. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that video I did with Erie, but that was effectively the whole point of that entire video, was that the structure of the UNL is important from like a geopolitical point of view.
Yeah, no, I saw it, and I certainly agree, right? I think it's very important and brilliant in how it operates, right? But I've been around this crypto space for so long that I have seen how the narrative has particularly influenced a lot of high net worth individuals, right? And so for right or wrong, right, a lot of them have been influenced to the point where they are under the impression that I would only really trust putting a lot of wealth onto the Bitcoin network because I feel that my value is going to be safe based on what they've been told about Bitcoin, right? And so they have scared these people. No, I'm just saying they have scared these people into thinking that, oh, if you had your money on the XRP ledger, right, then you're either at the mercy of Ripple or whatever their conspiratorial, narrative may have been, right? But it's definitely a real thing in this space, right?
I mean, I know those thoughts exist and they sort of flow around, but whatever. I just stick to the economics, dude. Like, what are you going to do with the Bitcoin? The only thing you can do with the Bitcoin.
But it's outside of an economic perspective, right? If we were just talking about actual security, meaning free from theft and free from censorship, right? If those were just the focus of the conversation outside of the value of Bitcoin, right? Again, they have convinced them from a technical perspective, right, that the security mechanism of the proof of work network, right, gives them more assurance that they would be free from theft and free from censorship, right? And what I'm saying is there's never an honest conversation to show that the FBA mechanism can get just the same amount, if not more security, just in a different way, right? And that's the point I'm really kind of making.
Well, let me put it this way. Okay, if and I'm going to go with the assumption, and stop me right off the bat if this is a bad assumption, but I'm going to go with the assumption that these people are probably trying to put money into crypto for investment purposes. Is that right? Or
let's define investment purposes.
Well, they want the thingamajigger to go up in value relative to whatever their balance sheet is, whether it's dollars or euros or whatever.
I think that would be kind of a hard determination because we would be getting down into percentages and then the actual who's and and it's a lot of more nuances in determining that, right? At the end of the day.
Well, these likely are not people that are actually trying to build something. Is that fair?
It would definitely be fair to say that they're not trying to build something. What I'm saying is that we have to acknowledge, at least from my perspective, and I've been around, the space a while and been a lot around a lot of Bitcoiners, right? Some of the early, what they would call cyberpunk people, right? And they were not really kind of engaging with Bitcoin because they thought Bitcoin was going to go up. Like and you were around at that time, and some of the people may have been also, but it was really for better or for worse, for right or for wrong. Let me just say that up front. It was really believing in the idea of having a self-sovereign currency, right? Like there was really a belief in that thesis at that time, right? Now, of course, the dynamics are a lot different now. But I think if you look at the history of how that narrative evolved, they in a way sold that same narrative to some of the institutional people. Like at the end of the day, you need to be also hedging your risk for the same thesis model, right? And so that's why I don't want to put everybody into one box.
I just wanted to, if I can chime in, I just want to say that I personally not a fan of the UNL default UNL structure. I think this is something to be just acknowledged. Like it's just maybe personal preference. I also see like that is difficult to avoid maybe because I've seen like comments from Nick Bugales where he's saying he would be happy to change this, but to efficiently solve the Cybele attack vector in that sense is he hasn't figured out a solution for that. So yeah, for me it's okay, but I think it's not really ideal. So it could be better.
Well,
yeah. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah, in full disclosure, Brett, I have made some public comments about it myself historically, right? And even proposed some potential, ideas to maybe not be overall solutions, but just improvements. And I have publicly spoken and published some things about that as well. So I definitely probably understand where you're coming from. But I think when it comes to a comparison of we'll just say three major consensus models, I definitely prefer it over the alternative.
That's one of these things I say, like, dude, when you're in finance, like, you're always weighing alternatives. And so people in other professions or something, they get set like, this is the right thing. And it's like, okay, well, is it better than the alternative or worse than the alternative? And it is weird how the consensus cryptography just kind of like magically doesn't exist, yet it's been running for a decade plus or whatever. I mean, without any issues. It's weird. It's weird.
I think when you really boil down some of the objections to the UNL, fairly so, right? If you really go down the logic tree about it, right? What the validators are ultimately doing at the end of the day, 99% of the time, is just validating transactions. So there's really no real risk involved in there to say, well, it could be, in this different model that allows for more openness, more participation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just validating transactions at the end of the day. And I think where some of the risk is real is really in the potential amendment aspect of it, right? To say, okay, if there were potential proposals for changes to the ledger, right, then it's being restricted to just potentially 35 people may have its potential drawbacks, right, and risk factors. So, but
that's a good
transactional, right, from a transactional standpoint, they're just validating transactions. So they're not able to steal money, they're not able to double spend. Like those things kind of are not a risk factor as much as just amendment and proposals.
That's a very excellent point that I've actually never heard anybody say.
Yeah, and listen, if anybody in the audience has any questions about any of the terminology that's been used or questions about anything they're talking about, please feel free to hit the request and come up and ask. There's absolutely no dumb question. If you're thinking it, somebody else most likely is. And if we could ask, if you could retweet the space also, get some more attention so some people can see it and hopefully find it valuable.
I just wanted to piggyback off what Castro was talking about with regards to Bitcoin and how the narrative has sort of changed, right? I mean, when Bitcoin came about, this whole sort of subculture of crypto, punks and so forth, that was going to change the financial system, which was such a big selling point for the people that was tired of what happened in the Lehman Brothers collapse, right? But I'm actually a firm believer that although that was the case back then, you can make arguments now that that's not what it is, right? Anonymity was a big factor of that. A peer-to-peer payment protocol was a big, factor in the past for that. Those things are no longer valid, right? You see it now on the basis of on and off chains and how governments are able to take back your Bitcoin and so forth. So all those narratives have failed. The store of value narrative that it doesn't go below its all-time high, the 200 EMA, that broke below 20,000, and that proved it wrong. So the narrative changed. The narrative that it's an inflation hedge, and now it's an emergent, store of value versus a store of value. Those narratives the goalpost keeps on moving along, but what people don't realize is that a significant amount of the
Stock
the
to flow.
people.
Stock to
Go
flow.
ahead.
You forgot the stock to flow.
Yeah, absolutely. The stock to
Yeah,
flow argument.
I'm
Those
held.
all don't all fit into those narratives anymore. And core, really smart people in Bitcoin, the core developers are actually leaving the protocol. So that's one big question mark, right? When the some of the most intelligent people that supported Bitcoin in the past and helped, be core developers and are leaving, you have to question whether the sub narrative that Bitcoin has been compromised by big tech and big enterprise is actually true. Now, if you start to analyze what Blockstream has done and their sort of transition with Taproot and so forth, some even argue that the actual Bitcoin code has completely changed, and hence why you've seen initiatives, that forked from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash and now Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, that sort of want to hold those initial values, that was put in place by Satoshi on the white paper, right? So these arguments will go on, but the fact of the matter is, people will still jump into Bitcoin that don't know any better, right? So we probably have two or three more cycles of this before people start to really wake up and see that, wait a minute, maybe this proof of work sort of thing doesn't really work. We have the ESG initiative now that's sort of pushing away from that. We have initiative by very intelligent people and coders that actually want Bitcoin to move out of proof of work into proof of stake. Also, Chris Larson has mentioned that he's not the only voice for this, because they understand the weaknesses of this argument of proof of stake and destroying the environment to maintain a ledger that doesn't do anything, right? But it does prop the value, as people believe it's the main sort of exit to a fiat based monetary system that's collapsing, which is fine. That narrative holds some truth. But when you dig deep enough and look under the hood, you see other technologies that are doing it a little bit different, right? And that's why when you look at XRP, a lot of the Bitcoin haters automatically jump into this boat non it's not decentralized, it's a centralized entity, and they change those narratives for the people that are actually trying to learn this stuff early on, and then they buy into the fact that, oh wait, that there must be right because the fiat based system is crashing, and they must be right because this is unfair and Bitcoin's the only answer. It is not. We all understand this. Whoever in this space has been here long enough. Yes, Bitcoin will be a top dog for some time, but when you start to really hit a utility based bull market, not a bull run, a bull market, you'll see it as a legacy protocol that people will still hold. Kind of like the what is that, Netscape of the internet, right? You eventually you had Yahoo, and then eventually you had iterations that formed Google that changed the world dramatically. I'm not saying that Bitcoin can't reach $1 million. There's enough stupid people in the world, right? You get enough panic out of the fiat-based system, and when other protocols aren't ready or aren't being supported, Bitcoin could run to $1 million. I'm not saying it can't. All we're saying from a technological perspective is we see it for what it is. And once people see it for what it is and people start to wake up, they'll rotate out of it accordingly. And it happens fast. It happens
That's it,
fast with
man.
any technology.
That's why I say, like, it's a tool. You know, like, you use it for what it's good for, and you know, if it's not good for that, then you don't use it.
And Tesla sold Bitcoin yesterday, which is really sad. But
They did $978 million.
it is what it.
Right. But let me speak to Ghost's point, right? So at the end of the day, you do highlight some very great points, right? And we've seen the narrative change over time. Though, and for good reason at the end of the day, right? This market is accessible for people who are opportunists looking to pitch you anything, right? Whether it's another narrative to get you in Bitcoin or whether it's to buy this next coin that's going to change the world. This place is just the ideal place to pitch ideas to people for profit, right? But at the end of the day, and your thesis is, from my perspective, is right when it comes down to the scalability and the inevitability of Bitcoin, right? But what I'm saying is, until another protocol, and this is kind of the point that I was really making before, until another protocol can give the world the confidence to put that kind of money into it, right? Then we're going to still see the whole dynamics that we still see today. And the majority of it will still go to Bitcoin in this current moment, just because the narrative still hasn't been corrected that a ledger like XRP can secure those funds. Like, that's really my whole point. If the world were to realize that their funds were as safe on the XRP ledger as they were on the Bitcoin ledger, we would have seen these dynamics change a long time ago. But as of yet, not a protocol that has been created out of the 20,000 of them has been able to change that narrative. And that's what I'm hoping that
Well,
we can
well,
put some
nobody
work
wants to
to
change it,
change it.
Kashta, right? Kashta, the key here is nobody wants to change the narrative. Enterprise have bought in, right? Institutional money has bought into this, so nobody is interested because at the end of the day, it's a money making venture, right? If you play the
But I'm saying
market,
the competitors do, don't they, Ghost? I'm talking about competitors. The competitors are trying to vie for that narrative, right? Of course, I'm not expecting the
yeah,
Bitcoiners to change their own narrative. But I'm
yeah,
talking
but
about competitors.
I agree. Competitors will vie for that narrative, right? But competitors also have pros and cons to those protocols that they're building, right? Just the other day, I learned something new. Did you guys know that Bitcoin had two inflation bugs? Meaning, in the last 10 years or 12 years, whatever, when how Bitcoin sort of how old Bitcoin is, there's been two inflation bugs, and you've been able to print, past the 21 million. Nobody even talks about this, but this is coming from people that are in tech. They actually saw this in 2010, where 6 billion additional Bitcoin was printed out, and they had to reverse those transactions accordingly to bring it back to the 21. Again, apparently, it happened 3 years ago when a core developer saw a bug on the inflation bug, where it was he didn't print anything, but these these things are, I guess the point I'm trying to make is these things are vulnerable. So as much as people in the Bitcoin community will tell you it's the most secure chain and so forth, they've had technical difficulties as much as any other blockchain that's out there. So those pros and cons will always be out, weighed by investors accordingly, and you put where your money is and where you think this whole system is going to go. All I'm saying is that these narratives, you have to watch out for it, because a lot of the Bitcoin people that's pushed through the enterprise and institutional money have a very significant interest in making sure this thing goes up to the 500 to the $1 million range, right? When you've bought in already and you got keys and you're counting cards at the casino, nobody wants this party to end. So it's going to keep on going. Once we transition out of this into a new financial monetary system, which I believe will be run through the XRP and XRP ledger, the game will completely change. It will, because that transition will have to happen, whether it's a sort of transition out of the Bitcoin to from the Ethereum to the XRP. Those will end up happening as the financial system gets built. I mean, it's clear as day if you game theory this for the next 5 to 10 years. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. The system needs to change. Governments aren't interested in the Bitcoin standard. Governments want to stay in power. Governments want to have their sovereign, wealth and sovereign money in play. Digital currencies are in play. These are all signs that you can read.
Yeah, Ghost, can I say something? Sorry. And it, like, narrative doesn't have to change because the XRP ledger. It could be Ethereum. Like, if Ethereum take over Bitcoin, the narrative will change. The narrative will change because everybody will be saying, "Oh, it's about utility. It's not about just, a store of value." And of course, there is no store of value. And even the store of value, Ethereum will be the store of value of Ethereum if Ethereum take over. So, if Ethereum take over, the narrative will go to Ethereum as the store of value. Because people just keep chasing. So the narrative could change too. Ethereum.
I would just say this. I would just say this, Egyptian. I would disagree with you only in that high working individuals, right, are ultimately going to look behind the hood and evaluate what the actual risk is, right? And
Okay.
if they happen to, that's hold on, just let me finish. Just let me finish. If they go to a proof of stake mechanism, right, it doesn't take a genius to understand that if I'm not the biggest whale in the room, then my funds are never really actually safe, right? They're at the mercy of the biggest whale in the room. So I just don't think it's as simple. Yeah, you're going to get some FOMO of retail chasing whatever has the number one spot, and they may cause a lot of volatility. But at the end of the day, high working individuals are not going to go to a proof of stake model where there's a bunch of other whales in the room that are really in control of my money. That's just not going to happen.
Gosh, I'm going to tell you one thing. The high worth net value people that you're talking about, you know where they put their money? They put their money with Terra Luna, they put their money with 3AC, they put their money in BlockFi, they put their money in Free.Shares, they put their money in Celsius. Okay? That's the high, like, believe me, these people, if Ethereum take over, you guys think
Egyptian. What you're saying is I used to know a guy, unfortunately he's passed, but he would say, you'd have these like gangster drug dealer or whatever, money launderer, what have you, some sort of criminal, and they would go to a casino, right? And they'd cash in with, I don't know, $1,000, right? They go to the roulette table, they pick red or green. They in all likelihood lose half the money, and then they cash out their chips and they got clean laundered money.
Yeah, but here's what I always often remind Egyptian is sometimes he often gets caught as a prisoner of the moment. So you're looking at the Celsius failures, you're looking at the Voyager failures, and you're saying, oh, well, hold on, let me finish. And you're saying all the high work, let me finish. You're saying all the high net worth individuals were participating in that. So what do you think about high net worth individuals? No, in reality, the majority of high net individuals stay far away from those products, right? That even the shock of those losses was a very small percentage of the overall market. And the narrative seems loud about it, and you get distracted behind those loud narratives behind it. But at any given time, Egyptian, just remember, there's only about 2 to 3 million Bitcoin that are on exchanges and are circulating in all these products. Period, right? The mass majority of Bitcoin is staying locked in cold wallets by high net worth individuals who are not participating in any of the bullshit, right? That is just the reality if you roll it all the way down to the facts.
Okay, Kashta. Once the high wealth individual you're talking about, when they see Ethereum taking over, you know what's gonna happen? They are gonna sell their Bitcoin and go to Ethereum. I mean, they are not gonna sell all of it.
Egyptian, that's an opinion of yours, and I respect it. I'm just telling you, I respect it, but I just 100% disagree with you. If you think these people that are sitting on tens of thousands of Bitcoin are going to sell their Bitcoin for anything, right? Just look at their behavior. They are not selling it for no Ethereum. Period.
I let you speak.
Well, I've said this before. It's a lot like Bill Gates or I don't know, Steve Jobs or like whatever. Some freaking whoever's got a whole bunch of stock of a public company, right? A lot of time because there's rules there's actually forms they have to fill out. I think it's like a 5 something. There's some code like for the rule. Anyway, they have to fill out forms before they can sell, and they have to be publicly notified, and they can't just like call up and like sell, right? So but what they can do is borrow, right? This is actually, I think, the original purpose of stablecoins. The original it's to give fiat liquidity to some of these crypto whales.
That's exactly what it is, Karma. And just to sort of piggyback on Egyptian, I agree with you to a certain extent, Egyptian, but I think you're analyzing it from a trade play from an institutional perspective on that rotation from Bitcoin to Ethereum, right? Which is going to happen, right? There's going to be institutions out there that's going to be chasing yield. You're not getting it in the equities market, but now you get it on this new sort of financial platform or crypto that's burgeoning and blossoming, right? So that's going to be a play for a lot of the trade sort of aspect. But when you look at institution and those who are long on the technology, I think you'll get a separation that happens with regards to institution looking for solutions, and that may or may not be in the Ethereum ecosystem, right? So if you start to look at Binance, an example, I know in North America we look at it sort of as scammy coins because of a certain amount of altcoins that are spawned for Binance, but it's kind of like Ethereum in that way, right? It's sort of a different protocol. It's sort of built and sort of functions the same way. I guess the point I'm trying to make is apart from these two and the other ecosystems that are building outside the ERC20, you get the privacy layer coins like Darrow that has Ethereum capabilities but blockchain related, and then you get these fancy hybrid DAG protocols that has a proof of work consensus in it that is very interesting, and additionally coins that are geared and catered towards enterprise adoption. A lot of that will sort of saturate in those sort of utility based assets that these enterprise can start to use accordingly, and that's where the multi-chain world comes in. But you're right in that sense. If it's a money play, institutions are going to go through the Ethereum sort of ecosystem much the same way they've exhausted by then the Bitcoin ecosystem from a money play perspective. But I think from an investment or a long term perspective of an investment, I look at this as okay, What do I where do I put my money where my kids are going to be okay, right? And I don't put my coins in anything risky. I have 10% portfolio out of my portfolio that allows for yields and things like that, just to play around with those ecosystem. But the fact of the matter is, when you start to look at it from an investment long-term hold, smart money would always go, what's going to get utilized in the end? And I'm not sure that, as much as Ethereum has sort of built this massive ecosystem, that they're the clear winners, right? I look at things like Phantom and other protocols that are way interesting, that are small caps, but has the potential to do
Yeah,
that. Even Polkadot, for God's sake,
here.
proof of stake.
Okay, let me tell you, I'm not using as Ethereum as the one, like, okay, so here's the thing. Let's say Ethereum take over Bitcoin. Okay, what's going to happen is the narrative, oh, it's because it has utility. Okay, which mean is people will look at other coins that has utility. Does that make sense? So it's not going to be Ethereum. It's the narrative that if something has utility, it has a chance to actually advance. Okay, I wasn't talking about Ethereum as Ethereum, but the closest one to take over Bitcoin right now is Ethereum, and I have feeling it might happen sooner. Okay, and it might, and if it talk over, you will see a lot of narrative change. And when I say the high, like the high whatever net worth value people, when I talked about this example, is not because like they are idiots. Okay, people who he thinks that an institution and high net worth value people know what they're doing, it turned out they are idiots. Okay, and we've seen how idiots they are. Okay, they made big mistakes, one after another. Okay, and now they try to like clean the mess. So if you tell me that actually people investing in Bitcoin because they know what they're doing, no, it's actually they are like the small investors, like the retail investor. They actually running after the hype. Once the Ethereum take over, okay, all the hype is gonna go to Ethereum, and everybody's a new narrative is,
But
hey,
the problem is,
yeah,
like we were talking about earlier in this chat, with the cryptography and the consensus and proof of work and proof of stake and all this stuff. There's economic problems that are unavoidable with proof of work and proof of stake. I mean, I don't know, like it's literally like, to me, like a lot of these smart people are just like completely insane. Like they don't see the glaring shiny object like that is obviously going to be a problem, and it's not even hiding itself. It's shiny. It's right there in the middle of the room, and it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, but I'm not talking from perspective. I'm talking about how people is going to react.
Hold on, Egyptian.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. I know exactly what you're talking about, but what I'm trying to illustrate to you, right? And I know exactly what Ghost is talking about, right? But what I'm trying to illustrate to you is that when you get down to who are the actual people holding the Bitcoin, right? And who are the people listen to me. See, it's funny that you said Michael Saylor, because this is really illustrating my point. Michael Saylor, even at his height, was not among the true whales in the Bitcoin community. The people who are holding the most Bitcoin are people who bought it way before the Michael Saylors, Grayscales, and all of these people that you think of from an listen to me, brother, that are institutional. Go ahead. I'm gonna let you talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, but because you interrupt me before, Kish, okay?
Well, I don't want to interrupt both of you guys, but
you think they're smart, okay? They are not smart. That's what it is. You think that people high wealth and like people got lucky. You know what I mean?
I did not make the thesis that any of these people were smart. You're the only one interjecting that to the conversation. I was just illustrating that the people that you are consciously, that are on your frontal lobe, when you think about high wealth people in Bitcoin, has proven to be these Johnny come lately institutional players. And what I'm trying to tell you, factually speaking, that those aren't the true whales in the space. The true whales in the space, go to the on-chain metrics. The biggest wallets have Bitcoin that is increasing in accumulation and doesn't move often at all, right? They're not these people who are participating in this price discovery, trade market, and all of this stuff that you're hearing about, right? And that's the only thing that I was trying to advise you on, bro. Like what you're seeing is only a small fraction of the overall activity. And don't get caught up in the small point just because it's loud.
That's why they use the stable coin, right? The Bitcoin stays in the wallet, so it doesn't sell, right? So you don't like cause what would effectively mechanically be like a bank run on Bitcoin. And you still get fiat liquidity.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna close up the space there. Also, guys, hitting right on that 5 o'clock mark. I love you guys. Love you all. Love you both. And please, if you guys aren't already, if you could follow ledgerscale on Twitter and turn notifications on so you know when we're going live. I thank everybody who comes up. I thank everybody who comes and listens to the space in the future, right? We wouldn't be doing these if everybody didn't find it valuable. And I know it gets a little heated a little bit sometimes. We try and keep it down so it's nice and relaxed. So for anybody to come up and ask any questions, but I love you guys, and we'll see everybody tomorrow. What were you saying, Egyptian? Good.
Keshta and I are so cool. We like each other.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Everyone have a great one.
We're still good friends,
I'm pretty sure everybody here's friends, but that doesn't mean you can't have a lively conversation. And yeah, I do appreciate everybody joining. So yeah, it's what makes this worthwhile.
Yep.
Thank you all. Have a great day, everybody.
Okay, thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody. And I might not be able to make the space tomorrow, but Karma will definitely have it up just in case.
Yeah, don't worry, man. I got it. We're good.